Which quarterbacks and tight ends should be in your lineup for fantasy football, and who should be on your bench? We're about to find out. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre. He's Chris. We're here now for week 13 of the fantasy season, and we're going to do as we do and break down every matchup and talk about the quarterbacks and tight ends that you should be starting or sitting. Got two teams on bye, and that would be the Arizona Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers. Before we get to the individual matchups, let's talk about those guys that are must-starts regardless. At quarterback, Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Justin Fields if he plays. At tight end, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, and TJ Hawkinson. All right, let's start with Thursday night. Bills kicking things off first again. So Dawson Knox definitely did not smash against the Lions on Thanksgiving. Does he fare better against the Patriots?
Probably not. I'm not starting Dawson Knox. No way.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you didn't do it against Detroit, why would you do it against New England? It just when it looked like he was coming on, getting more involved, great matchup, and then this is why we haven't been playing Dawson Knox all year. So just don't do it. Mac Jones put up a fair amount of yardage last week, but does he do it now against Buffalo?
Against Buffalo, probably not. This is not the Vikings secondary. I know the Buffalo defense banged up, but still, I cannot start Mac Jones.
Well, look, if you're in a 2-quarterback league, sure, actually don't mind because might have to pass a lot. We know Damon Harris is out, might be forced to throw it, but that would be it. Only super flex 2-quarterback. Now, Hunter Henry had that touchdown, almost, maybe should have had a second touchdown. Does that make you interested in him?
I mean, no. Look, he's the same as he always is. He's a guy that has to score touchdowns. He did it for you last week if you started him. Will he do it again this week? Maybe. Maybe not. I mean, if you're desperate, you can stream him, hope for the touchdown, but that's really it.
Yeah, again, this is a guy who at one point everyone thought would be this elite tight end. He never really quite was that, but in this offense, he can't. He can't be that. He'll show up once in a while. He did it last week. I'm guessing he won't do it this week. I will not start him. Steelers at the Falcons. Kenny Pickett still at the helm. You feel any better about him this week than you have before?
I mean, maybe a little bit because it's the Falcons, but I mean, just not throwing for a lot of touchdowns. I'm still not doing it. Even in a 2QB Superflex league, I'm not ready to start Kenny Pickett yet, even in a good matchup. I can't do it.
Look, I think if you're in like a 12-team or deeper Superflex league, maybe this week take a shot on him. That's pretty much, I think that's his ceiling, really, is that he might be a passable QB2 in fantasy. Now, Pat Freiermuth, on the other hand, you feel solid about. Maybe not the highest of ceilings, but you feel like he's a good start.
Yeah, I think if you got Pat Freiermuth, you just put him in your lineup and you take whatever you get.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a matchup to trust him, it would be against Atlanta, so I think Freiermuth definitely solid in Week 13. Marcus Mariota, not too solid.
No, he's like a borderline start in a 2QB Superflex league, and that's only because of his rushing, so yeah, that's it.
And we really haven't seen as much of that lately. Look, he still could, but this Steelers defense has been getting better. Marcus Mariota is getting worse. I'm going to say no interest in him. Broncos at the Ravens. I almost say that we even have to mention Russell Wilson at this point, but let's say he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Fantasy relevance is what?
No, you just can't start Russell Wilson. Matchup doesn't even matter. You cannot start Russell Wilson.
No, hard pass, no interest. Next question. Packers at the Bears. All right, so Aaron Rodgers wants to play. We'll see if his body lets him. We'll see if the trainers let him. If Aaron Rodgers does play with a broken thumb, with banged up ribs, with questionable accuracy this year, are you trusting him against the Bears?
I think against the Bears, I trust him to a degree. Like, not a guy I want to start in a 1QB league, but in a 2QB Superflex league against the Bears, I think he's startable.
Man, there's so much risk there because how do we know he doesn't leave early again? I mean, this guy probably shouldn't be playing, so I can't do it. I think I would rather not take that risk despite the matchup. So I'll pass on Aaron Rodgers. Now, what if Jordan Love is the starter? This would be a chance for him to show what he can do. Look, he did some things toward the end of that game against Philly. So what can he do against the Bears?
I mean, I'll admit, he looked a lot better than he did the last time we saw him on a football field. But, the Eagles were up big. I don't know how hard they were playing. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers that they were facing. It's the Bears, though, but still, I don't think I could trust Jordan Love this week. Let me see it. I'm going to sit him.
Well, I would say I'm interested in the upside. He's got an arm. He actually has some weapons now. But I think it's going to be a run-heavy game script if he's the starter. So I'd say, again, only in Superflex. I would feel better about him playing than Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not going to go crazy. And on the Bears side, look, if Fields plays, I think you got to play him. We know his upside, obviously. What about Cole Kmet? How do you treat him either with or without Fields?
I mean, with Fields, you can start him, but don't feel great about him. And without Fields, no way am I starting him.
Agree. We saw what he did last week without Fields, which was not much. With Fields, I think he's startable, but still not quite as interesting as he was before. This isn't like a smash spot for a tight end, so he's very fringe streamer. Jags at the Lions. All right, I'm dying to get your take on Trevor Lawrence because we saw what he did. That comeback could be a signature moment for him, or it could just be that he had a really good drive at the end of the game. So, what do you feel about Trevor Lawrence against Detroit?
So a little foreshadowing here, but I talked about him in an upcoming video. Really like Trevor Lawrence this week. I think he's a must start.
Okay, I think that you have to take a shot with him. Look, maybe it doesn't come through. Maybe last week was just last week. Let's find out. It's Detroit. I think you got to start him if you need a quarterback. And then Evan Engram, well, he wasn't, one of the main beneficiaries of Lawrence's sort of breakout game, but against Detroit, you got to be kind of high on him, right?
Yeah, kind of high on him is probably the right word. I think if you need to stream a tight end this week, he's not the worst option, so you can start him if you need him.
Yeah, I'll go higher on him than like Cole Kmet or Hunter Henry, but I wouldn't put him, as a top 10 tight end. So he's streamable, we'll put it that way. And then Jared Goff, he's Jared Goff.
Yeah, but it's a good matchup. I mean, he's had some decent games. I think he's okay, only in a 2QB Superflex league, though.
Well, look, he plays better at home. They do put up points at times. Jaguars not a great defense, but he'll never be startable in a single quarterback league. So Superflex, okay, that's it. All right, now here's the man where I guarantee we'll get 90% of our questions on Saturday. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson. First game back, first game as a Brown, and it happens to be at Houston. Imagine that. How are you treating Deshaun Watson? Because a lot of people are dying to know if he's a must-start in this matchup.
I don't think he's a must-start, but here's the thing. If you've been holding Deshaun Watson this long, you probably don't have a quarterback you really like ahead of him, right? Maybe you're rolling out like Marcus Mariota, Jared Goff, whatever. So I think if you're one of the people who have Deshaun Watson, you probably need Deshaun Watson, and you got to start Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and I guess some people just like to have a backup quarterback for, I guess, the feeling of comfort or something, or just feel like to stash him so you can trade him or whatever. Like I'm definitely playing Watson over those guys you mentioned. I do like Trevor Lawrence better than Deshaun Watson. I know you feel the same way this week, but I think Watson is a borderline QB1 just because of the matchup. I mean, you've got to be interested in him against Houston. And then I'll tell you the guy I like to kind of foreshadow that same video, David Njoku, I think could be the main beneficiary of Watson coming back. You got to like the fact that he was a lot more involved last week. You agree?
I agree. He looked all the way back last week. If you've got David Njoku, you start David Njoku.
Yeah, I think you definitely start Njoku, and I actually like him rest of the season as well. And then on the other side, well, I'm assuming we're getting another week of Kyle Allen. What does that mean for Kyle Allen against Cleveland?
Not starting Kyle Allen. I don't care who they're playing. I'm not starting Kyle Allen.
No, nor should anybody be starting Kyle Allen, really. Even if you're in a Superflex league, maybe flex out a wide receiver instead. Jordan Akins, I think we got to talk about him because he did have kind of a big game in Week 12. Does that carry over?
Probably not. Not putting Jordan Akins in my lineups. I'm not chasing that big game. Sitting Jordan Akins.
I am too, but I figure it was worth mentioning. All right, the other guy at quarterback we know people are talking about is Mike White, the hero of New York. Is he going to be a hero for fantasy teams in Week 13 against Minnesota?
I mean, it's a good matchup. It's a bad secondary. We saw what Mac Jones just did to the secondary, so not starting Mike White in a 1 QB league, but I think he's a good start in a 2 QB Superflex league.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have to kind of temper expectations. That's pretty much a fair way to put him. Mid-range QB2. I think that's a good way to assess him. And then Ty Conklin at tight end obviously gets some value now with the quarterback change, but is it enough to make him streamable?
I think it's enough to make him streamable, but that's it. I mean, I'm not rushing out to play Ty Conklin, but with Mike White in this matchup, he's streamable.
I mean, if you want a revenge game narrative, here it is. Conklin was with the Vikings last year. They didn't re-sign him, but no, I don't care. Conklin is streamable, but really there's some other tight ends who probably have more upside. So let's talk about Kirk Cousins now against the Jets. Actually, not a very good matchup for him. How do you feel about Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a tough matchup last week too, but he's at home, and he's got this guy named Justin Jefferson who can just bail him out whenever he needs to. So I think Kirk Cousins is a solid start this week, even in a tough matchup.
Actually, you know what? I kind of put him right there with Mike White. You know, he's kind of a mid-range QB2 for me. Can't get too crazy about him. He hasn't really put up many big games this year, and this is a good defense, so I really don't think you should be starting him in a single quarterback league. Commies at the G-Men. Got Taylor Heineke, of course, still at quarterback. How do you feel about him?
Not starting them. A big letdown last week against the Falcons. I know that they were just able to run the ball, but that's what they want to do, and that's what they'll probably be able to do this week as well. Not starting Taylor Heineke.
You know why Washington is winning games and now in the playoff spot for the wild card? Because they aren't relying on the arm of Taylor Heineke. He's managing the game. Look, props to him for leading them to victories, but it's really the defense, right? So Heineke for fantasy, not cutting it. He's kind of a low-end QB2, barely startable in Superflex. Logan Thomas, well, just another one of those receivers and Washington players who let down last week. Is Logan Thomas even on the radar this week?
I mean, this will probably be the week where he does something. I know he was banged up going into that game, but you know, but John Bates got a touchdown. Not starting Logan Thomas this week.
Nah, can't start Logan Thomas. He's lost all of his luster for me. And then there's Daniel Jones. Now it gets a really tough matchup. He's had some good ones lately. This is definitely not one. How do you feel about Jones?
Yeah, 2 QB Superflex only, and that's only because of what he brings you with his running ability. Don't expect a big Daniel Jones game in this one.
Completely agree. I'd be worried about starting Daniel Jones this week, but I guess if you needed a second quarterback, he could do. Titans taking on the Eagles. Well, really the only player we need to talk about at these positions here is Ryan Tannehill. Can he put up numbers in Philadelphia?
Yeah, not liking Tannehill again this week. Last week he was okay because, like I said, I thought, that Bengals defense would shut down Derrick Henry, and they did. This Eagles defense probably won't shut down Derrick Henry because they're much worse against the run than the pass. I think this is a Derrick Henry week. Not starting Ryan Tannehill.
Nah, I mean, the ceiling's already low in this game. Yeah, I think there really is no ceiling for him, so I'm out on Tannehill. All right, we got Seattle taking on the Rams. Geno Smith, what do you think he can do against this team that, even though they're reeling, they still have a decent defense? Can Geno put up numbers to be startable?
Probably. I don't like him quite as much as I liked him last week, but this defense, this whole team kind of checked out at this point, so I don't think he has a ton of upside this week, but I think if you need him, even in a 1 QB league, he's startable.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer to find a better option because I don't really see this being a score fest. So I'll really have him kind of off the streaming radar for single quarterback leagues. I'm going to say Superflex only for Geno this week. And then the quarterback on the other side is Bryce Perkins. All right, so can Bryce Perkins do anything in a home game against the Seahawks?
Probably not. I actually had some interest in him last week against the Chiefs. Thought he might rack up a lot of yards running. He really didn't. No weapons here, no nothing. I cannot start Bryce Perkins.
Yeah, no. You just can't. Again, You feel like the Broncos might be the offense you want no part of, the worst offense in the NFL. I think this Rams offense at this point has taken a title. They are the worst. The offensive line is worse. The quarterback is now worse. No, I'm not touching him. That includes Tyler Higbee. You can probably drop Tyler Higbee, can't you?
Yeah, no chance I'm starting Tyler Higbee. No way.
Dolphins taking on the Niners in a rematch, long-awaited rematch of the 1984 Super Bowl. All right, let's start with my boy Tua. It's not a good spot for him. This is where the schedule toughens up for Miami. So on the road against San Fran, how do you value him?
I think you still got to start him. One thing about the Niners is they're more susceptible to the pass than the run. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle. I think you still have to start Tua, even in 1 QB leagues.
All right, good. I'm glad you're with me. Yeah, low-end QB1, but still, with those weapons, this offense. And hey, you got to think about it this way. Mike McDaniel, head coach there, if anybody knows how to figure out that defense and that system, it would be him. So, can't love Tua this week, but I think he's startable. Mike Gesicki, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's not startable.
Not startable at all, no.
Jimmy Garoppolo, been decent. What do you think he does against this Miami defense?
I think he can be decent again. I mean, they're not very good against the pass. I think Jimmy G, not a guy I want to start in a 1 QB league, but in a super flex 2 QB league, he's a good start.
Yep, always just right there. Chiefs at the Bengals. Well, you know you got Pat Mahomes, you know you got Joe Burrow, you got Travis Kelce, and then you got Hayden Hurst. Where does Hurst fit into this whole tight end streaming conversation?
I think this week in what should be an absolute shootout, a super high scoring game, I think there will be chances for him. Not a guy like I feel like you have to start, but he's streamable this week.
And you consider there's a good chance Jamar Chase is coming back. I think that Hurst's path to being, really valuable in fantasy is limited. So again, I think you could start him, but only if you're really kind of desperate. Chargers taking on the Raiders. Gerald Everett did not smash against the worst defense against tight ends last week. Does he do any better against the Raiders, who are also a pretty bad defense?
Yeah, but I think the problem here is Keenan Allen, right? Like, remember early in the season when he was smashing, he didn't have Keenan Allen. Now they got Keenan Allen, they got Josh Palmer. All three of these guys kind of run the same, kind of like those short, intermediate, in-cutting type of routes. So, yeah, I think you can start him, but I don't love him this week.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right that just the dynamic of this offense here, I don't think Mike Williams being out is going to help Everett as much as Keenan Allen was, like you said. And Mike Williams might be back. But either way, I think Everett is still startable, but he's just not as intriguing as he was before. And then, speaking of not intriguing, we got the Raiders here. Look, Derek Carr actually did put up numbers last week because it was just a score fest, and they went to overtime. Do you think he could do that again against the Chargers?
I mean, maybe, but just not a guy I want to start in a 1 QB league, 2 QB super flex only.
These games seem to be high scoring when these teams get together. I think he could put up numbers, but man, if Josh Jacobs does what he did, this Chargers run defense, maybe he doesn't even need to pass the ball that much. So I have him as a high-end QB2. He is streamable, but again, I would rather have guys like Trevor Lawrence over Derek Carr. And then Foster Moreau caught a touchdown last week, goes against the Chargers. Where do you put him?
Again, I'm not going to say a must start. I liked him a lot more last week against Seattle. This isn't the worst matchup, though, but I'm going to say more of a streaming option this week.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely going to be streamable for the most part as long as Waller's out, but not the highest ceiling. So, again, depends on your options. I think he is flexible. Colts will take on the Cowboys. Start with Matt Ryan. I think we're glad he's back, but more for his pass catcher's sake than for his own value in fantasy. Does he have fantasy value at this point?
Not really, and in this matchup, definitely not. I'm sitting Matt Ryan.
Yeah, you got to figure he's going to see a lot of Micah Parsons in his face and going to take quite a few sacks. You cannot start Matt Ryan. Dak Prescott, on the other hand, is he almost even bordering must-start territory without question?
Yeah, we're getting there. This might be the last week we keep him out. You got to start Dak Prescott if you have him.
Definitely not a bad matchup. They're at home. You got to like Dak Prescott. Start him if you have him. And then Dalton Schultz, almost the same. He may not score 2 touchdowns every week, but this is a great spot for him. I think you have to start him too.
Yeah, if you got Dalton Schultz, you put him in your lineup, you take whatever you get.
And then to close out the week, we have the Saints at the Bucs. Andy Dalton is still in there for some reason. So against this Tampa defense on the road, what say you?
No chance that Andy Dalton is in any of my lineups. Must sit.
Definitely a must sit for me as well. Now, Juwan Johnson didn't score a touchdown. He was really close. In fact, he probably should have caught that touchdown pass, but where does he fall for you in this matchup?
Same. Has to score a touchdown. If you need a streaming option and you're desperate, he has a chance to score, but that's it.
I mean, I still like the way he's being used, even though, again, this offense itself has looked pretty bad. He's getting those opportunities that you want from a tight end, so I put him pretty high up in the streaming conversation there. Probably maybe even above a guy like Gerald Everett this week. And then let's end with Tom Brady. Against New Orleans, can he do anything better? I mean, he kind of really let down against Cleveland last week.
Yeah, I mean, he did throw 2 touchdowns, but not a huge yardage game. But, now he's at home. Saints secondary hasn't been very good. Not a guy, not going to say a must start, but I think he's streamable in 1 QB leagues and a good start in, 2 QB Superflex leagues.
Yeah, you got to wonder what it is, that's going on. Well, I mean, we kind of know what's going on with him, but I don't think we're seeing Tom Brady of last year statistically, but this is a good spot. He's better at home. Chris Godwin looks better. I put him kind of on that low-end QB1 spectrum, below Tua, above Derek Carr, kind of in that range. All right, now that we've helped you with those lineup decisions for quarterback and tight end, let us help you also at running back, wide receiver, and everything else you need to win in fantasy for Week 13. It's right here. Check this playlist and keep it going with all the advice you need to win.